Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, you're sitting with a wonderfully eclectic group of people. We have our special guest, Miss Tavane. She's bewitching, and she needs no last name. You are tuned in today with the crew of
Ohm-g, the podcast. Welcome back, y'all.
And we are so excited because the owner of ECLECTIC by Nature in Greensboro, North Carolina is here joining us as a special guest, Miss Tavane.
It's one of my favorite haunts.
Yes. Yeah, I have been going to EBN, as I call it, for years. I want to say like 17, 18 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it was a place of community for me when I first started out on my spiritual journey, I would say. And I know that Tavane has created that community for a lot of people in our area. And so we are so excited to have her here. We're like all fanning, right?
Yeah. We've been talking about this day and dreaming it up for months and months and months.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about having you on so long ago.
Yeah.
Like you would be
such
such
a podcast origins. Like when we first started, we were like, Tavane would be an amazing guest to have on because
do you think she'd do it?
Right. Because before we all became a group of friends and a podcast, especially, we all had shopped at EBN for some time.
Before
and so
we knew each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're excited to have you here.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here with us.
Yes.
My pleasure. So we have lots of questions.
Ask away.
So our first question is, how long have you been in the woo?
I was 30, I think. So 27 years.
Nice.
Yep.
You're 57, girl?
I am indeed.
Girl, me too. In
Looking
March.
good.
In March. I'm pushing it, but I'll be there in March.
Y'all ladies are looking good.
Mhm.
Looking fantastic.
So what brought you into the woo world?
So I lived in Southern California.
Whereabouts?
South Bay. So
Okay.
Redondo Beach, Hermosa
Yeah.
Beach. Yep.
I
And
used to live in Huntington Beach.
nice.
California connections.
Yes.
Northern Cal.
Yep. So my granny used to say California was the home of the fruits and nuts.
Yep. For sure. Can confirm.
And so I was more than happy to be there. It fit right in. And that's where I just found people that knew astrology and crystals. There was a store there in Redondo Beach called Soothe Your Soul.
Mm.
And I think, oh no, the Psychic Eye. That was my
Ooh.
first. And that's a tiny chain in California of the woo stores. And yeah, to this day, I still remember how it smells. We have an incense
Wow.
in the store that smells exactly like that place. So
Nice.
So that was your introduction to the woo.
Yeah.
And what was your first interest in the woo? Did you want to do astrology, tarot cards, healing work? What was your first thing that was like, ooh, this is interesting?
crystals.
Crystals.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, like most kids, I loved just
Rocks.
shiny rocks as a kid.
Pretty
Ate
shiny
the
rocks.
whole thing.
Yeah.
The pockets.
Yeah.
So yeah, crystals.
Nice. So when did you first open your shop?
December 18th, 2002.
Wow.
So 20 years. this
Wow.
year.
It's been 20 years.
Uh-huh.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know. I might
That
even put
is
out a press
crazy.
release. That's how excited I am.
You should.
Oh,
I think you
totally
should.
should.
My birthday's
awesome.
December 19th, so I
You need
could
a, need a guest appearance or anything.
Yes. That's amazing.
Her shop is a Sagittarius.
Our shop is a Sagittarius.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
So how has that grown over the years as far as how has it developed and what did you want to create with creating the shop itself?
Has it evolved into what you thought it would be, or has it from where you started maybe taken a different turn?
No, it's exactly what I thought it would be. It took a while to get there. Before I lived here in Greensboro, I lived in the Florida Keys.
Nice.
And I worked at a woo-woo shop. And they were the ones who put all the finishing touches on me so that I could create this shop. They taught me everything about how to run a store, vendors, everything. They were amazing people.
Cool.
And so, what was the question?
Girl, I am 3 glasses into Prosecco.
3 Prosecco with every podcast.
When you started your shop.
Oh, yes. So I was at home one day and so I'm skeptical about everything woo-woo, everything, which is bizarre that this is my line of work. And so I just had this urge to sit down, and I had this ratty piece of cardboard, and I drew out the floor plan that looked like, remember when we were across the street in those 3 spaces on State Street? Mm-hmm. So in 1999, I drew the floor plan.
Wow.
And I moved, all over the place. And stop that. That's funny. One of my mentors just called me.
Oh.
She's so psychic.
So we said, hey, girl.
Yes. So then when I, I kept carrying this thing around, and I just happened to dig it out of an old file cabinet one day, and I looked at it and I was like, fuck! This is it.
The dream is not dead.
Yeah, it took me that was probably maybe 2012 when I noticed.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was 13 years later.
You manifested that shit.
There it was.
You did. Wow.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
So I know whenever I knew you, whenever I first came into the community, you were having an event space. So what was your idea with having that event space? Because you don't have that necessarily now in the same way.
Mm-mm. So then there were so many different modalities for, spiritual healing or readings and things like that. And so I wanted to the whole point of Eclectic by Nature was to be a space where people could find community.
Yes.
So, Virgo, Capricorn rising, service is huge to me. And this is how I knew to be of service to my community. So I just wanted as many people as possible to experience as many things as possible in one place.
That's awesome.
I love it.
I love that.
And I think you're successful in that. I mean, I think this episode is proof of that,
Well, and I think that is one thing as people start to awaken and start to become curious about woo-woo stuff, is that's the thing that they long for, because it's like, I can read the book and I can practice the thing, but it's like, am I doing it right? Am I getting what I'm supposed to be getting? How do other people do it? And there's nowhere really to go to, because you can't just walk up to somebody on the street going, are you woo-woo too? I mean, I guess you could, but, but
50 feet, ma'am, 50 feet.
but finding that mentor or finding that space where you can explore and ask those kind of questions. And I've told this story on the podcast before, but I mean, that was what Brenda was for me, because I had been dreaming of as like, if there was just a group of people that I could get together with and we could practice stuff, or, I could ask questions and learn how they do different things. And I kid you not, it was probably maybe the 5th time I had actually sat down and consciously tried to manifest it. Get a text from Brenda. I'd had one massage with her and we sat down for an hour after the massage and just talked and exchanged numbers. It was fast friendship.
Yeah.
And get a text from her. If I started an intuition development circle, would anybody come? I'm like, manifested that shit.
Right.
But
naked and with glitter, I will be there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Should I bring my tassels? That kind of party. But it's so needed, especially for people who are kind of just becoming curious.
Belt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was my question. Was why Greensboro, North Carolina? You're on the buckle of the Bible Belt.
That is what I heard. So I can't remember, the Witch Fox used to be, and it may still be, a website. And it covered the entire country. And you could look up stores, practitioners by state.
Wow.
And the internet was still kind of new, because this was
Dial up.
When I
Answer the phone.
I'm on the internet.
Exactly.
I remember.
AOL. Yep. So I think probably around late 2001, early 2002, when I was still in Florida, I got on Witchvox, and I had thought about Sedona, and I'm like, yeah, it's so overdone. I've already lived in Arizona. And I had a sister who lived in Greensboro at the time, and I thought, well, I've never lived in Greensboro. So I got on Witchvox, and I asked people that I saw lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, do you think metaphysical store would go over well? And they were all like, yes, yes, yes. And they're like, but we've had so many that have come and gone. The problem seems to be that they never stay. Don't give me a challenge.
Don't hit me with a good time.
Exactly. I'm like,
Capricorn rising, I accept.
This can be done, and I will do it.
Right. That's amazing. That
So
is amazing.
that was my market research, like 10 people on Witchvox,
And
of which Kenny Poplin was one. I don't know. Look at
Hell,
blank
Kenny
faces.
Poplin.
Well, there are people out there who remember the UU Church? Wow.
Unitarian University.
Yes,
Yeah.
there was a UU Church up on Hilltop,
okay.
and that's where the CUPS, Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I cannot believe I remember that acronym. I don't know what I did yesterday.
I searched for that group here. No luck, but keep going.
So, yeah, and those were some of the people that I tapped into. And so that was the first community I became a part of, because they had, like, they would meet in the UU church and do, like, Sabbath rituals. It was bizarre.
That is
To
bizarre.
be in a church
Right.
with Sabbath rituals, I was like, I have found my people.
Yeah. UU sounds like woo woo. So
Yes, it does. And yes, buckle of the Bible belt was the, and I'd never heard that phrase before. And I'm like half Yankee, half Southerner. And so I thought, I can't believe I've never heard this before. I would have thought it was Mississippi. I don't know.
Right.
So, yeah. So yeah, I was like, I'm coming down here and I'm changing this place.
I'd like to throw a random question at you, if you don't mind. What is the one thing at Eclectic by Nature that you always find yourself selling out of, reordering frequently? What's your hot seller? I'm guessing sage, but I want to hear it from you.
Yes, and I try not to run out of sage, and I try to steer people away from sage as much as I can.
Why is that?
Because it's been over-harvested.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there's just a lot of unethical pulling of whole plants out of the ground from your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And so there are so many other ways to effectively clear.
Yeah.
And some people don't like the smell of sage. One of my employees, it immediately gives him a headache, so we can't burn it when he's working. So
Can you share an alternate way?
Cedar,
Okay.
Palo Santo.
That's been over harvested though.
Okay, well, scratch Palo Santo. I'm not surprised.
I found it in a chain store and I was livid. the five below.
Five Below has Palo Santo.
Five Below had crystals, sage, and Palo Santo, and I was mortified.
Imposters.
Girl, what the hell was you doing in a Five Below? Okay, another episode.
I was looking for cell phone accessories or the
Sometimes you need drawers on the go.
You
That's right.
do.
Hey, man, they have cheap, good watercolor paper.
There you go.
Just saying.
Okay, I just started
Add it to the
watercoloring,
list.
so
They get it from Five Below.
okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
Sorry. So
Okay, commercial.
We digress.
Moving
So
on.
cleansers are some
Cleansers.
things that are like hot ticket items in
Yeah.
EBM, it sounds
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Rosemary's
What do
good.
we run out of? Ooh, yes. And rosemary is so powerful
Plentiful.
for women, especially. Like if you plant rosemary out in the
yard.
front of your
In
house,
my yard.
that's
Can you
women will
share?
grow- Women
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
That is a good herb to grow for women who want to be the rulers in their homes.
So it helps us ground our ovaries, basically.
Yes,
I like it. I like it.
even the sleeping ones. Yes,
Excellent.
Yes.
So I have a question for you. How did you come up with the name Eclectic by Nature?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I love this story. Like I said before, it gives me goosebumps.
Can't wait to hear it.
So I was flying from Florida to here to look for a house. And I was reading Margot Adler's Drawing Down the Moon. So Margot Adler was, because she's passed now, an NPR correspondent. But she was also woo-woo. And she was open about it. And so she wrote an entire book about modern pagans. And this was, I think, in the 90s. And so I'm reading this book on the airplane. And I'd been trying to think of names for the shop because I knew I was going to do this. And there was a line, and she said, pagans are eclectic by nature. And I was like, oh my God, that's the name of my store.
20,000 feet in the air.
Yes.
She shit a brick and came up with her business name.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So, and I love that book. It's a good book. It's a tome.
Alexandra has just made a mental note to buy that book and read that book.
So nice.
Yeah, same
It's
here.
so good.
Do you carry it in your store?
I think it's out of print.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
eBay. We'll have to search
Yes.
the web. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong. But I think it is.
We need to link that on
We
the
will
show.
link it in our show notes. Yes.
Says you who don't write the show notes.
But I
Oh, girl. We will have our people. Brenda. Link. So I have a question, Tavane, which I know you kind of touched on earlier, but I sort of like had this vision before you came earlier of this young girl in like a cult shop and just having this moment of thinking like, I could do this or I want to do this. Maybe that's not true for you or not your story, but could you sort of speak to like, what was the aha moment, I guess, of like, when did you decide like, this is cool and I could do it too? Or, like, was there a moment or a group of moments, I guess?
So the crystal shop that I worked at in the Keys, it was called the Crystal Loft, and it was owned by these two folks. And they've been doing this for like 11 or 12 years.
Okay.
And so they weren't a couple, but they had been a couple. Okay, never mind.
Messy.
Yeah, in a good way.
It's complicated.
Right.
And so they wanted to sell the store. And I would have had to have sold my house in order to buy the store.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, I already know this is now my life's calling because I'd been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I have to do this. So I'll just figure out a way to do it myself. Fine, I can't have this one. Fuck you. I'll get my own.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome.
And boy, did she.
Yeah.
Thank goodness you did.
Yes.
Yes, they did me a favor. And I still, to this day, thank Deborah Kupchak for making me the fabulous store owner that I am.
Shout out, Deborah.
Yep. And Badger in the great beyond.
Oh.
And I think, the thing that I feel every time, and you guys can speak to this as well, because you've been in the shop as well, but I feel like it's like this warm embrace whenever I walk in the door. Like people are happy to see you, or, you get directed in where you need to go to get what you need. But it's like this feeling of just like coming to family and home to me.
Yeah.
That's good. That's what I want it to feel like.
Yeah.
That's why I love that now we're in a house.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And so I like it to have that homey vibe.
Well, that's the, like when I first walk in, I get overwhelmed in a good way.
Yes.
It's like I want to look at everything all at once, and I don't know where, I don't know where
like
to
I could
start.
tear up also.
Yes, exactly.
Reminds me of a shop I found in Costa Mesa called the Crystal Cave. And that was like my first, because I kind of started this path alone by myself when I was young. So coming into your shop, I was like, this reminds me of the Crystal Cave. And I'm like, this is a place that I enjoy being at and makes me think of the place where I started my journey. So I just love being there and continuing my journey in a new city. So
I have a question that I think kind of like lends itself to this part of the conversation, which is like, obviously it's seemingly easy. Like when you walk in and it's womb-like and it's home and it's cozy and everyone is so friendly, like that's something that like has to be curated. And so are there, like for people who come in and apply to work at EBN or Eclectic by Nature, are there like specific things that you like ask in the interview or look for, or do you kind of like sense like, oh, your energy is going to work at Jimmy John's?
Yeah. Or is it just like you get a vibe and you just kind of know if this person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She's afraid to say too much.
So I don't have a lot of turnover.
Right.
So I don't often have to hire.
Right.
which is a very good problem to have.
Yes.
That's telling also of you as a business owner. But
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I don't even call it, my coworkers are like family to me. And so that's the very first test that has to be passed. Is if there's not some kind of connection, like I think you're fascinating or I like your aesthetic or whatever it is, that has to be there. And then age is actually a thing. We have 17 to 62. So
nice.
It's not that, I guess it's more of an internal age.
Right.
Right. So I've got one of my gals she's in her 30s. She said she was born feeling 80. So
it's so funny because we actually recorded an episode today prior to this, and we had this exact conversation about our, because we go from 20 to 60s, and we were talking about, it's more like a soul age than it is a physical age.
Souls are timeless.
Yes.
And more like a family.
Yeah.
Our chosen family. Our chosen family. Yes.
All right. So on that note, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to ask some more
fascinating
and delving questions.
Titillating Tavane.
All right. We'll be right back.
All right. So we're back from our break, and we have Tavane here with us again. And so I had a question for you. How did you begin developing relationships with vendors who source things ethically, sustainably? And what would you tell somebody who maybe also wants to get into this business, how to kind of break into finding the right people to source your materials from?
That's a good question. So I am protective of my vendors. And there have definitely been people who've come in over the years and said, hey, I want to have a store like this in my town. And can you, give me some help with that? And my very first thing is like, well, I'm not telling you where I shop.
Right.
So I learned, again, from the folks in the Crystal Loft, I brought a lot of vendors I still use to this day from that place.
Wow.
But there are trade shows, right? So there's the GL and W shows, G and LW, whatever, Gem and Lapidary Wholesaler shows. And so you can, anyone that is in wholesale or has a resale license or whatever can attend. There is a trade publication now called Insight, I think it's all one word, magazine. And they list, there are articles, but it's basically just a advertising magazine.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then sometimes traveling vendors, especially crystal vendors, will come to me, but I have a jewelry vendor that comes to me once a year, and kind of like employees, these people just find me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then I kind of look at what they do, how long they've been in business,
how they feel.
Absolutely how they feel. And so,
very cool.
I just kind of pick and choose what shows up in front of me. I haven't really had to do a lot of hard work to find my vendors, but that's what I encourage other people who want to start stores. That is part of the journey. If someone just hands you all of this stuff, then it's not your effort. It's not necessarily your taste. I only buy what I would buy.
Right.
And I'm like, if I don't care, if there are other places, go spend your money with them.
But the fact that you haven't had to do a lot, in your own words, I haven't had to work very hard to find the vendors, is a total testament to what the vibe of that shop would be. Because essentially you've manifested them, you've attracted them rather than having to go out and hunt them. So you're bringing in the vibrations that match yours into that shop. That, I mean, to me, that's the biggest advertisement that you've said yet in this conversation about what type of shop you run.
And additionally, the fact that you buy only things that you yourself would buy means those people are going to find you, and you're not trying to please everyone out there, even though you are creating a community of like-minded individuals. It's not,
but you're attracting the like-minded. You're not. It's not just a
catch-all.
Well, kind of like come and see the show.
Right.
Kind of vibe.
There's a story that I told on a previous episode. I don't remember which one, but it was about Eclectic. And my husband and my best friend and I were all waiting in line to get in. This was
still it was a crystal episode.
Was it? Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I told you. Yes, I am.
Thank you. Yes, of the kid, but back to that age component, right? Where it's such a diverse group of people that come and shop there, which I think is a testament to you manifesting. And I just love your shop. But yeah, the teenagers who were there who's like, dude, my mom has like crystals and water she puts out under the moon or whatever. And like, I was just like, who are these children? You know, I work with kids. I want to be away from them on the damn weekends. It's too much to ask.
You're like, boy, you're being raised right.
Exactly, right. Who's your mom? Give me her number right now. I'm like, Cynthia, you're raising a good one, you know? But yeah, just like the fact that they're like, you know, 15, 16-year-olds that shop there, but also like people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that come in and get things that they need. And I just think that's really wonderful, and it's very like niche in a way, you know, because it's not like it's difficult to find in a shop that's small and locally owned. And
yeah. So I would ask you a question. You have seen this kind of woo world that you're living in here in this specific space, and how it has changed over the years, and also seen people come and go into spirit, and how that has affected the community. And I wonder how it has changed the community as people's energies come and go, and how the woo world in this area has changed over the years, because it's been 20 plus years, right?
Yeah. What your perspective is on what you've seen change or shift.
And how people affect that as well. Like how people's energy coming and going has affected that. It's a broad question and very...
It's a thinker.
So
yeah.
I've seen how people were in the community when I got here.
Mm-hmm.
People like Bob Benz.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so like the huge contributions that he made to the community in his area of expertise, and how that spawned little clusters of like, you know, mini Bobs.
Yeah.
And, you know, their spin on what he did. Then think about like Cindy Loving when she had Loving Sense, and she made essential oils in this area, like just a common experience, a common thing that, you know, oh yes, yeah, Loving Sense. Yeah. That's where you want to get your essential oils from. And then, you know, she retired. And then of course there's Marie over at Rocks and Locks, Birth Songs.
Yeah. We love her too.
Yep. Yes. I love Marie to pieces. So, and Marie's been here way longer than me. And so she and Mac created a community as well, mostly centered around, you know, the crystal world. But, you know, they were the educators for crystals. And
how do you think the shop has changed over the years? Like, I know in the beginning, whenever I was there, it was like the community aspect of it. I felt like more so of like, you know, the classes and people who could gather and do things. And that's where I did my first readings at with Bob Benz, was at Eclectic by Nature, right?
That's right. Those nights.
Yeah. They were super scary for me.
You would never have known.
Yeah.
So how do you think that aspect of things have changed?
Well, we're definitely less gathering. Like, say, the way that you all gather, right? We used to have a lot of people come in and ask, oh, hey, do you know about any covens? Squeeze one out, buddy.
Sorry, there was a dog fart in the midst of Tavane's answer. It wouldn't be an episode if there wasn't a dog fart or a pant.
Yay, Cooper!
Sorry, Tavane.
Comic relief. I love it. So, yeah, less gathering, more solitary. I am breathing through my mouth. I'm not even taking a chance.
Less gathering, more gas. Cooper is a fetchingly handsome yellow lab, and he sprinkled some love on it.
He's our smelly lab. Well, he sprinkled something. I don't know if it was love.
It's coming through that mask, girl.
Right.
Powerful.
Yes.
Smelly labs, smelly labs. What are they feeding you? You're not their favorite pet. But we digress.
Sorry. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That's pepperoni farts.
It's Thanksgiving weekend. Who knows what they ate?
Special sauce.
Yes, but I think that's important, though. Back to her point before the shitstorm, literally, about gathering and like forming community that way versus like individuals going into the shop or having different, you know.
And it's changed too with COVID, right?
Yeah, and it had started to slow down a little bit before COVID, but COVID kind of sealed the deal. And then that's brought about, during lockdown, social media sites, I don't know why, but, you know, suddenly the woo was exploding on social media. I would say busiest year we ever had was 2021. Like I was blown away.
People got time on their hands to research.
Yes. Yeah. And then they had time to research, and then they got let loose after that research, and they were desperate for.
They were looking for something to believe in.
Yes.
They were looking for something that was going to explain what was going on. And I also noticed on social media that there was like a barrage of like little classes that were no money, like $25, $39, $49. That was, that was like learn crystal healing or come to my sound bath for $11.11 or but because also everybody that was home was trying to make $1 because they didn't have a job, right? But I feel like there were a lot of people at home that had time. They got introduced to things just because it piqued their interest.
And it was also introspective time.
Yes.
I think more people were awakening during that time period too. Of like, well, I'm here at home with nothing to do. Who am I?
Well, now I've got time to think my thoughts and feel my feels, and I'm not really liking this.
Do you think that the community aspect will become more popular again? You said it fizzled out.
I think it's cyclical. So yes, I think we will, continue on this sort of solitary path for a while, and people will get sick of that, and then they'll want community, and there will be a resurgence.
That was going to be my question: is would you be opposed to, or do you feel like you'll ever go back to also offering that kind of aspect in your particular business as well?
In our current location, which in theory is going to be our final location,
in theory.
Never say never. I'll stay on State
Street. Spirit wants what Spirit wants.
I know that. State Street is my home.
Yeah.
But in that space, we've got that one room in the back that does not lend itself to a lot of people. Even pre-COVID, I was like, I can't get too many people in here. I'll just freak out. I said this on my lives, so I'll say it here as well.
Speak your truth.
I'm going back to teaching classes in January.
Yay!
So I'm going to pare them down because I used to teach a year-long series. So it was first year witchcraft/magic, then second year. Third year, I could never finish. Third year just always stymied me. So I will break it down into smaller pieces. So it'll be, classes about moon magic, classes about crystal magic, so smaller, like, singles or 2, 3, 4s.
I'll be signing up.
I'm spelling some live reporting in my future on the scene type stuff.
Right.
She'll grab her left tit and say, "There's a 30% chance this is a waxing crescent right now."
And then you'll grab my right one. Oh, never mind.
That's a different episode.
It is.
Sorry.
I think that's awesome.
That's amazing.
I kind of have a follow-up question. How would you say the communities within the Woo are different from all the places you've lived? I know you mentioned California, Southern Florida, and then up here, and you mentioned living in Arizona. So are they all the same? Are they different? What was your favorite?
California was my favorite because it's wide fucking open.
Yeah.
Fruits and nuts, baby. Fruits and nuts. Those are my people.
Closer to the coast, the crazier the folk.
Yes. And then I would say Florida was probably the least open. And this is in the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Key West is
right.
Key West is pretty open.
Pretty eclectic, for lack of a not better word.
Exactly. But they would get a little weird. Like if we got too
witchy,
loud in our woo, there would be a slight backlash.
But I could see how they would be very protective of what they've kind of curated on the Keys. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't want it to change too much. They like their brand of weird, not your brand of weird.
Yes. And we know it was.
I mean, and I'm not diminishing that by any stretch, but it's taken years for them to cultivate what they have there. And
no, it should not change.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was odd that it was just sort of the locals that. No, it was religion based.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was definitely religion based. So Greensboro is somewhere nicely situated in the middle. There's still that religious aspect of people not understanding or having, like just fear around what they don't understand. But I will say people have asked this question in the shop a lot, which is, do I get a lot of backlash from the religious community? And I'm like, I never have.
No.
Yeah.
Because that's not my intention.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but we've said this on the podcast before as well, that Greensboro tends to be a little more accepting than some of the surrounding
Yes.
communities.
Lots of colleges around,
And
right?
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's because of the college education.
Mm-hmm.
We have, what,
Oh, there's so many.
7, 8
We have
colleges around here?
HBCU, we have A&T, we have UNCG, Greensboro, Bennett,
Elon, Guilford.
Guilford.
And
Yeah,
there's a big
tons.
Quaker base as well, whether
And
you
Quakers
subscribe
are
to
pretty
those
open,
beliefs
yeah.
or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's about accepting and loving and going about your business.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
I mean, I went to UNCG for grad school and undergrad, and people would joke that it's the Asheville of the triad.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you have your hippy dippy, whatever people that are into the woo and stuff, but you also have like your Bible belt buckle Christians, but it is just I don't know. I love Greensboro.
Yeah.
But it is a melting pot, and there's not a lot of friction between the
Yes,
groups.
there's more like live and let live,
Yes.
like coexist.
Yeah.
like it's eclectic or something.
By nature, almost. Oh my god.
We're naturally eclectic. Ooh, I think we have something.
So foolish.
Oh goodness. So you've talked about how you've been in the spiritual community and into it for 27 years, I think you said, when you started in the 30s. So what did you start out with? Did you do certifications, classes, become master? Like,
I mean, you said that you were like, the first interest was like crystals, but like,
I read. So immediately following crystals was astrology and then witchy shit.
Yep.
Nice.
And so again, the internet was new.
Mm-hmm.
And so of course, like all good young 30-something women who were single, love spells,
Yeah.
which is why I am so vehemently against them today.
Yeah.
Because I've had my experiences and I'm like, what a clusterfuck of nonsense this is.
The gateway drug.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So I took astrology classes. There weren't so much crystal classes that I remember. But so then after that, I read everything because, still then the internet was still so new.
Right.
I'm still trying to figure it out today. So
who isn't? I mean,
Right,
there's
right.
so much out there.
Yeah.
So I read, I make fun of myself for this sometimes, but Silver Ravenwolf was my very first book. I can remember sitting in a laundromat reading it, hoping nobody was looking at my cover because then they're going to burn my ass. And this is in California. They would have given me, some LSD first. But
Right.
Make it a nice trip for you.
Exactly. So books were my main teacher for a long time. And it wasn't until maybe Greensboro where I really dove into classes. I spent a good solid 6-7 years taking every Earth Star class that was ever offered. And you can tell from my I Love Me wall because I have certificates covering the whole wall.
Interestingly, that you found a lot of your support here in Greensboro, because I would say I found a lot of my support in growing in this, I was going to say industry, but the woo-woo here, even though I have lived in California, I lived in New York, and it's here where I felt like I was planted enough to grow in this stuff. There's enough of a little bit of everything with a lot of support thrown in, and that wasn't necessarily in other places.
Yeah.
So I do have another question, and this is Chandra, by the way. So you said that you started out just reading a lot of books, and a lot of the people that I listen to and that I've talked to started out that way. It was just like digesting anything you could get your hands on. But one of the prevalent experiences that I've heard is that kind of leads to a little bit more confusion and a little bit more trying to take what piece of this resonates with me and what piece of that resonates with me and put together something that, makes sense to my sensibilities and my particular talents, for lack of a better word, or what my intuition is telling me. Did you have a similar experience to that, or did you find exactly what you were looking for in those books that you read?
So there were a lot fewer choices back then. And you really had to find a store that carried these things, right? Because there was no Amazon.
Right.
Right. So, and even then trying to find them, there was still a little bit of stigma around, what are you buying? But I would take what I read and then I would practice what I read. And I think that's the component that often is missing is people will read books and think, okay, well, now I've read this book and I'm a witch.
Right.
And they're like, well, not until you actually take it out into the material world and start doing something. So, I mean, I would just practice rituals and calling in elements and going over to the beach and,
But I can see that because now there is so much available. It's like you digest one and then you can move right on to the next one. And that's our culture now, is to just like as fast as I possibly can, just to get to the end, whatever the end, is going to be. But people don't take the time anymore to do the practice. They stay in the perpetual learning and then wonder why they don't grow.
Exactly.
So what would you say is your favorite modality in the woo right now? Like, do you love tarot cards? Do you love energy work? Do you love astrology? Do you love crystals? Like, what's the one thing that's like, oh, this is my favorite. I love it so much right now.
What has your heart at the moment?
And that can change.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
It changes.
Oddly enough, nothing woo.
What is your what is your thing right now?
Mixed media art.
Sacrilege.
I know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Creativity.
And so I am working the woo into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say the thing that I always love, I am always tickled to talk about, is astrology. Because astrology was one of the very first things. Yep.
All fingers are pointing to Camille. That's why we're sitting here.
It's a gateway.
Yes, it is.
Just like that pack of cigarettes, little Johnny.
Weed and wine, baby. It gets you the worst, That's
Don't
where
talk
it
that way
starts.
to me, boy.
Talk about tempting with a good time. Sorry.
But it's true.
It is.
It's very
Definitely
true.
is.
Yeah, because you can use it in every aspect of your life.
Indeed.
I mean, like, you were asking about employees and, I got to know their astrology.
Yeah.
Who's going to fit with the rest of the crew?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if somebody applies to Eclectic by Nature, they should also slip in a copy of their natal chart and just like, here we go.
You know what? They will get bumped up to the top of the stack. I'll tell you that.
Send your resume and natal chart to the following address.
Right.
Or don't, because
I'm not
it's
hiring.
selective.
That's right.
And your Enneagram and your...
Right. Your FICA score, the last time you pooped. So I have a question, Tavane, for you as well. For folks that listen to us who are not in Greensboro or not in North Carolina, is there any way that they can like support your shop or buy from you or,
Sure.
kind of.
What's your online presence?
Yeah.
So I am just technology phobic. So like you all doing this, I think you're all geniuses. Let's just get married tomorrow and it'll be fine. Just saying. Yeah. It'll be like, we're dating ourselves. It'll be awesome.
Keep lots of Geminis around. That's what I do.
Honey, my mom is a Gemini. I ain't got no choice.
Well, never mind.
What?
That was Aaron's question.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Where can,
Oh, yeah. My
yes,
online presence.
where can folks support you or how can they? that are
I
not
live in
this area?
BFE. How do I find you, woman?
Yes. Dear Bumfuck Egypt. From Tavane.
Yes. So our online presence is not strong, but we do have a website that is almost 20 years old and it shows.
It's so cute. I'm sorry. It gives me that nostalgia because I was born in the early 90s. So it gives me that like, oh my God, my first website. In a very, I mean that is such a compliment, truly. Like, it's very comforting and homey, just like the store.
I would say it looks a lot of like the witchy kind of websites I first looked at. And I'm like, oh,
My
this
people.
reminds me, yes. Okay.
It's nostalgic and like it's a very nice.
So this is comfort. I know this. We're good.
And it's easy to operate.
Very user friendly.
But Instagram is probably the way that we reach the most people. But I am so old school. I'm like, pick up the phone and call me and tell me what the fuck you want.
Yes.
I will get it. I'll send you pictures.
Yeah.
Whatever you need.
So they can call the shop and place an order and you can mail it?
Yeah, we mail stuff all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's just so much easier than going through a website.
Yes.
But we'll definitely link to your Instagram and everything in the show notes, Brenda Sue.
Yes, I will. I will do that.
And
Thank
the shop's
you.
address and telephone number.
Yes, old school style.
School. If you need to send her some snail mail.
I love snail mail.
I do too.
And such a rare art form these days. I feel like people don't value that as much. And I'm like, when you get a good piece of mail that's not like State Farm mailing you, you're like, oh, it is so nice to sit here and read this, that somebody took time to pick up this card, write this message.
And even in cursive.
Exactly. And paid $4 to mail to me.
Wonderful. Clutch your pearls. It's the one letter I'm not getting about saving 15% by switching to Geico. I actually want to read it.
So, on that note, we have enjoyed having you here so much.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I loved it.
So you might have to be a returning guest.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Because we all need to go shopping.
Yeah.
Yes,
And we need to sign up for classes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
So do you at home. So look at the show notes for the information about Tavane and her shop, how you can reach out, how you can support. And thank you for being here with us.
Like and subscribe to this content wherever you listen to. And if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting us on our Buy Us a Bottle page, which you'll find on our website. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Ciao, Bellas.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.